Despite a glaring hole in improv scholarship, a few scholarly works have focused on improvisation. The first historical study of improvisation, Jeffrey Sweet's Something Wonderful Right Away, is a compilation of interviews with many of the founders and early members of the Compass Players and Second City, and has been wildly influential in many improvisers, including I.O. co-founder Sharna Halpern and Annoyance Theater founder Mark Napier. But because it was written before the Herald came to prominence, it was first published in 1978, it obviously does not include much information about the Herald. More recently, Gene Leap's theatrical improvisation focuses on a broad view of the three genres of improvisation, and Amy Sham's Whose Improv Is It Anyway? Provides a basis for the history of improv by focusing on issues of race, gender, and power structures in improvisation. Leap's and Sham's books have provided some recent scholarship. Still, improv and the Herald have been largely ignored. The general lack of critical scholarship, as well as the variety of popular viewpoints and assumptions about improvisational theater, mainly that improv is the same thing as ad-libbing or winging it, has led to the mislabeling of contemporary improvisational theater as a secondary art form. People continue to overlook improv despite its overwhelming influence on contemporary performance, in particular on ensemble-based comedy on stage and on screen. David Patton defends the form, arguing that the Herald is perhaps the most important theatrical innovation since the American musical, the only distinctly American theatrical forms. Some would contend, however, that since the Herald, improv has been a relatively stagnant form. Prior to the Herald, performance improv did not have a set structure, leading Deborah Francis White and others to argue that the Herald standardization actually stunted performance improv, despite the fact that before the Herald, there really was no structure, and most improv consisted of disconnected games or ramblings, loosely connected scenes. Francis White argues that for the past 30 years, improvisers have mainly spent their time arguing over which work done between the 50s and the 70s is the best and recreating it without much progress. Most groups still present some version of the Herald, rarely deviating in any significant way. They may find a different way of beginning the Herald, but essentially the form is the same and the quality of the work has not improved from all accounts. Rob Kozlowski, in celebrating the Herald, remarked that practically all long-form improvisation is simply the Herald with a new coat of paint. Israel Savage recently commented in Is the Herald for Improv Cheaters? That following a structure like the Herald leads to stereotypes and cliched scene work, arguing that it can be akin to an artist using a paint-by-numbers set.